So, what would it actually look like if the US military just decided to go and capture the president of another country? Our source material lays out this incredibly detailed, hypothetical scenario for doing exactly that in Venezuela. Let's get into it.
Okay, right up front, and this is super important. Everything we're about to walk through is a fictional what-if scenario. It's all from the source material, and it's set in the near future, January 2026. This didn't happen, but as a thought experiment, it's pretty fascinating.
All right, so now that we've got that out of the way, let's dive straight into the action. The source gives this hypothetical mission a name, Operation Absolute Resolve, and it all kicks off in the middle of the night.
So here's how the source says it would go down. First, American helicopters fly in super low, like 100 feet off the water, totally slipping under the radar. At the exact same time, a cyber attack hits, and boom, the capital city, Caracas, is plunged into darkness. Then come the airstrikes, taking out all the radar and air defenses. And the final piece, Delta Force commandos hit the president's residence. The whole capture, from the moment they breach the door to getting him out, is over in less than 5 minutes. Just wow.
And what about the view from the top? Well, the source includes this pretty chilling quote attributed to the fictional President Trump, who's supposedly watching the whole thing on a live feed. His reaction? I watched it literally like I was watching a TV show. It's so surreal. A completely detached way of seeing a huge, world-changing event unfold.
An operation this wild, this completely unprecedented, well, it leaves you with two immediate, and I mean absolutely crucial questions, which the source material dives into next.
First, just why? What on earth could justify kidnapping the leader of a sovereign country? And second, what happens now? What does this do to the rules that are supposed to govern how countries deal with each other? Let's unpack the answers that the source presents.
Okay, first up, let's look at the official story. The public reason given in this whole scenario is all about one thing: drugs.
You see, the source explains that the whole mission is spun not as an act of war, but as a, quote, law enforcement function. The legal cover is a U.S. indictment against President Maduro for narco-terrorism. But does that reason really hold water? The source suggests maybe not so much.
And yeah, this is where things start to get a little murky. The source asks a really blunt question. If your goal is to stop drugs, is Venezuela even the right country to go after?
Just take a look at these numbers from the source. Back in 2018, Guatemala was estimated to have exported about 1,400 metric tons of cocaine. Venezuela, on the other hand, the indictment alleges just 200 to 250 tons a year. I mean, that is a huge difference. It really makes you question the official motive, right?
And it doesn't stop there. The source also points out that the deadliest drug in the US, by far, is fentanyl. And Venezuela? It has no known role in the fentanyl trade. That primarily comes from Mexico, using chemicals from China. So the bottom line is, the official story just doesn't seem to line up with the facts on the ground.
So, if it's not really about drugs, what's the real driver behind this hypothetical takedown? According to the source, the answer is one word, and it's been at the center of this conflict for 100 years: oil.
Just let this sink in for a second. Venezuela is sitting on the largest proven crude oil reserves on the planet. Over 300 billion barrels. That's more than Saudi Arabia, more than Iran, more than the US itself. It's a prize that is almost impossible to wrap your head around.
The source lays out this long, tense history to explain why. After oil was found there in 1922, U.S. companies pretty much ran the show for decades. But then, starting in the 70s and really culminating in 2001, Venezuela nationalized its own oil and gas. They took back control. And that one act led directly to the U.S. sanctions that are still in place today.
But honestly, the biggest clue the source gives for the oil motive is this quote, supposedly from the fictional President Trump the day after the raid. He doesn't call Maduro a drug lord. He says the nationalization of Venezuela's own oil was the greatest theft in the history of America, that they took oil away from us.
So beyond the why, the source then digs into the massive legal and diplomatic fallout. Because an action like this, it doesn't just happen in a bubble. The consequences would be immediate and severe.
The global reaction described in the source is pretty much universal shock and condemnation. A whole coalition of Latin American and European countries immediately calls it a dangerous precedent. The UN Secretary General says it's a clear violation of the UN Charter, and of course, rivals like China and Russia condemn it in the strongest possible language.
According to the source, this hypothetical mission breaks the law on two separate levels.
Here at home, the U.S. Constitution says Congress has to approve acts of war, and that didn't happen here. And then internationally, Article 2.4 of the UN Charter explicitly forbids exactly this sort of thing: one country using military force against another sovereign.
And all of this leads us to the final and maybe the most chilling point that the source material really explores: what an action like this means for the future of, well, the entire world.
The source actually gives this whole playbook a name: New Age Colonialism. And the definition is pretty simple and pretty terrifying. It's when a powerful country invades a sovereign nation to grab its resources, all while hiding behind a fake reason.
The ultimate warning here is that this wouldn't just be a one-off event. It would basically tear up the rulebook for international relations and create a new world where might makes right. I mean, if the US can do this, what's to stop China or Russia from launching their own invasions to grab resources, using some flimsy excuse?
And so this whole hypothetical scenario boils down to one profound and really unsettling question. In a world with huge armies and a thirst for resources, what happens when the most powerful countries just decide that the rules no longer apply to them?